Coming up, this multifaceted author left the high-pressure demands of an international corporate world and now helps people rise up out of their struggles and conquer their challenges. But first, welcome to Imagine Peace, the podcast that invites you on a transformative journey toward a world filled with harmony and understanding. Together, let's ignite the flame of peace within ourselves and radiate it outward so we can have a future where unity prevails. This is Imagine Peace, where dreams become reality. Join us as we explore the power of compassion, the beauty of diversity, and the potential for positive change. Welcome to the Imagine Peace podcast, brought to you by 10 Million for World Peace. I'm your host, MarBeth Dunn. I'm a founder and director of 10 Million for World Peace, and that's the place to extend and receive peace. And learn more about it by capturing our QR code in your phone camera. Our special guest today is Deborah Charnes. For 2 decades, Deborah managed hundreds of news conferences, editorial board meetings, press briefings, and one-on-one interviews. She worked with security communications and advanced teams for megastars and heads of state. Well, we're going to have to talk about that. To balance the chaotic scales directing major league campaigns, it was essential for her to soothe the stress and 24/7 schedule with body, mind, and soul lifesavers. So in 2011, Deborah left the high-pressure demands as an international corporate marketing communications strategist. Moving forward, she dedicated that same energy to positive transformation of herself and others. She vowed to never stop learning or sharing. Wow, welcome, Deborah. I'm so thrilled to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here too. And, when you read that introduction, it reminded me of some of the happiness and inner peace that I was missing for so long. And I've traveled a lot throughout my life, and I tend to travel kind of off the beaten path. And I have found so many people that are way, way, way younger than me who have prioritized that inner peace. And I wasn't able to do it until I was divorced, until my daughter had a full-time job with her own health insurance and, things like that. But, unfortunately, a lot of us take on too many burdens.
Oh, tell me about it. I've been divesting of myself of burdens lately. I think that's really essential because it's so easy to take them on. They seem so innocuous and don't appear like they're going to really make that much of a difference in your life, but they can. So I'm so curious because you worked with heads of state. Let's hear about that.
I worked for a marketing communications agency, and I was the head of public relations. And in terms of my clients, I would work with the CEOs, I would work with all different people. But one of my clients was a major North American nonprofit, and I managed their national conventions every year. And we would pretty much every year get all of the presidential candidates or the sitting presidents or the first ladies. Maybe next time around it'll be a first gentleman.
Could be.
But I worked not necessarily directly with them, but with their communications teams and with their security teams. And then I managed all the media for all of them. And this was for many, many years. And at each event, we could easily have 300 media at each event. And there was one election year, where the event was in Washington, D.C., which was even better for attracting all the media. And I believe we had 3 presidential candidates that were all there.
Wow.
So,
Oh,
so it was always fun.
wow. So let's talk about your book. And I definitely want to hear about your life because you have, I think, 12 gurus in this book.
I decided to honor all of the people that made a big difference in my life. And I am a certified yoga therapist. And as a certified yoga therapist, we traditionally work one-on-one with people.
Mhm.
And that's great. But if I'm working one-on-one with people, if I don't want to be working 80-hour weeks, which is what I did in the corporate world, then I really don't have as much impact on that many people as possible. And so that's why probably a long time ago, when I first started doing yoga therapy, I created a lot of therapeutic workshops where I would be able to reach more people. And then I decided with my book, I can reach an even greater public. And I consider my book a yoga therapy in disguise book
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm
because
also a Kundalini yoga instructor. And, there's just so much, such a rich um, modality, shall we say. Yoga has so many wonderful gifts to offer. So that's wonderful that you're using it as therapy. I love that.
And if you have, I also love Kundalini yoga. And one of the things that I love about it is the emphasis on breath work and
Mhm.
also on mantra meditation. And one of the chapters in my book is all about sound healing and mantras. Another one of my chapters is based on one of my teachers who is a leading researcher. He has been researching for 30 years yoga and the brain. And he's affiliated with Harvard Medical School. And much of what he does is based on Kundalini practices.
Right. And
That's,
probably the Kirtan Kriya.
yes. And that's something I wrote about Kirtan Kriya a long time ago. So he 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 definitely talks a lot about the research findings from Kundalini. And he's not just saying Kundalini, but what he's saying is you're not going to get the benefits necessarily if all you do is work out and
Right.
sweat. You have to have the relaxation response, you have to have the mindfulness, you have to have the breath work, and then body work too. And then another one of my chapters is all about meditation. And the reason that's actually the first chapter in my book. And the reason why I wanted to start with that is I think it's too common that people will say, oh, I can't meditate. They also say, oh, I can't do yoga or, oh, I can't sing. And of course, we all can do everything. We just have to release our inhibitions and enjoy it and let everything, be natural. And in terms of meditation, I talk about how it's not necessarily just sitting cross-legged in a cave for an hour or two. There are so many different styles of mindfulness and meditation.
Absolutely. You can do walking meditations, even, dancing meditations. You can, really, the sky's the limit and all the different types of meditations we can do, meditating on your breath, et cetera, et cetera. But I love the title of your book, From the Boxing Ring to the Ashram. I had visions of you, as like a retired boxer. And I'm thinking, wow, this woman is like, she's got it all.
Well, I will admit that I used to promote boxing matches,
Oh,
televised. I used to promote televised boxing matches, and I was ringside. And here I am, an eternal pacifist. I've been vegetarian since I was 16. And I always thought boxing was just, I couldn't understand it. I thought it was, I just couldn't understand it. Well, I have to tell you, I had fun watching when I would be ringside. But the story that I share in my book, From the Boxing Ring to the Ashram, is about one of my teachers, and it's a female, which I think is important to state because we traditionally think of boxers as being men, and
Right.
of people fighting as being men. And this was a woman who was into martial arts.
Mm.
Then from martial arts, she got into boxing. And she was so focused on excelling in boxing that she did. She became a world-class female champ. And she was very, I shouldn't say very, but comparatively old at the time.
How old was she?
I don't remember, but she was in her 30s. So again, it wasn't, she wasn't like a 19-year-old.
Right.
And, but unfortunately, she had too many hits to the head
Yeah.
and ended up with dementia pugilistica, which I believe is what Muhammad Ali also had.
Right.
Um, and dementia pugilistica mimics Parkinson's.
Yes.
And she recognized, and then she was also a victim of different attacks. So she had PTSD, she had chronic pain, and then she had to leave the boxing world to save her brain and to work
Yeah.
to rehabilitate her body, mind, and spirit. She checked herself into a brain institute. And at the time when she was boxing, she was classed at 130 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
She shot up to close to 400, with all the,
Ooh.
with all the chaos that happens to your body, mind, and spirit when she's leaving what was her passion. And anyway, she rehabilitated her body, mind, and spirit and found Tai Chi. And now she is the most gentle, peaceful, positive person that I know. And and of course she does have permanent cognitive damages, but if most people would never know. And she is just an incredible person. And so the chapter in my book that focuses on her story, the takeaway and what we can all do is to be more positive, to smile, and to be grateful. And I'm big on gratitude journals. And even in her Tai Chi, she always has positive affirmations that she shares with her students and that she says to herself when she does it as well.
I love that. Yeah. I've never done Tai Chi, but I'm very familiar with Qigong. I've been practicing Qigong off and on for many years, in addition to yoga. I love it. So let's talk about some of the big concerns in society. What do you think? What do you think is the biggest concern in society?
There are too many.
Mm.
We need to talk forever about this. One of the things that I'm very concerned about is the environment. And
Mm.
as a yogi, my first commandment is ahimsa, which is do no harm, non-violence. And we do so much harm to our planet. So that is one thing. And we can all do our share, but there's only so much we can do. We aren't responsible for an oil spill, like the Exxon Valdez or
Right.
BP oil spills, but we can still do whatever we can to play our part. So that's one thing. The other thing that I look at from a health perspective, from what I see with the people that I work with, is anxiety and
Mm.
depression and PTSD. And those are the three issues in particular that I address in my chapter 2 on Kundalini, well, on yoga and the brain, because
Right.
are so common. And what I want to mention about some of them is that I think that as our society progresses, we are more open and we are more understanding of what you and I and our neighbors and our friends and our family experience.
Sure.
Many years ago, in my role in marketing communications, I worked with the National Institute of Mental Health, and
Oh,
we were assessing the how certain populations would not accept any mental illnesses. And what we were looking at in particular was the population of people with heart disease traditionally also have emotional needs that are not being met,
of
and
course.
depression or whatever. And again, I think we have advanced so much in that area where we are open and talking about therapy. But and so at the same time, we recognize now more it's coming out from behind the closet, whether it be anxiety, depression, or PTSD. And one thing I want to mention about PTSD is a lot of people tend to think of it as being, if you're in the war, it used to be the name for it originally, there were many different names for it, and they were originally connected to war.
Right.
But now we even recognize that people that work in hospitals, like in the emergency rooms, they themselves may not be a victim, but they see so much trauma around them that then they have PTSD. So there are so many different ways that PTSD can arise.
Sure. That's very, very true. Also, it can happen, from early childhood experiences. It can even happen intrauterine, where we take on the trauma of the mother
And I believe in intergenerational trauma
and
where,
past life.
or where we take on the traumas of our ancestors.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's very prevalent. So no, I totally believe that. I've seen it, I work with that in energy work. So yeah, that's wonderful. I'm really looking forward to reading your book.
And with anxiety too, unfortunately, our society is exacerbating a lot of these things. So,
Sure. With the television constantly going over all of the awful things that are going on. All the things to scare you because that's going to increase their viewers. It's really a crime.
and again, I worked in and with the media most of my life, and a it's not a slogan, I don't know what you call it, but a phrase that we always said is, if it bleeds, it leads,
Yes, of course.
meaning the goriest stories rise to the top. And I just heard a beautiful on the news. I was at my daughter's and she had the news on, and there was a beautiful story. It was like one of those feel good stories
I love
about,
those.
yeah, and it was about a woman who, I don't know if she had sepsis, but she lost all four of her limbs. And all her neighbors got together, her community, to build her a house, handicap accessible, in like 10 days. And
Oh,
it's such a beautiful story. And unfortunately, rarely do you hear those beautiful stories on the news, which is why, of course, I don't follow the news. And
right.
I think it's very detrimental, and especially for both depression and anxiety.
Of
There are
course.
many things that we can do to protect ourselves
Of
against them.
course.
And one of the other chapters in my book is all about laughter as therapy.
Laughter is wonderful. People have healed themselves of horrible diseases through laughter.
Exactly. And it doesn't cost anything. Everyone can do it. And it just feels good.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And then I also wanted to jump because I noticed that you are also an author on the Ethel magazine, which is the AARP magazine for women. And I believe I have read some of your articles.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
So I have actually been a travel writer since I think the year 2008 or 2009.
nice.
And for the Ethel, I focus on travel because travel has always been my passion. And in fact, in my book, From the Boxing Ring to the Ashram, it takes people to all the places that I've lived or traveled to. So whether it and shares some of those experiences, because I am definitely the kind of person that believes that we learn the most and we receive the most when we travel. And I try not to
I agree
travel.
with that. Yeah, I do.
And
I
I,
agree with that.
and I
It's
try not to travel like a tourist. My background was in social anthropology.
oh, interesting.
So I try to blend in as much as I can.
I totally understand. That's fun. I lived in Haiti for 17 years. Talk about being in interesting places. It was a lot safer when I lived there,
Mm.
but amazing culture. I used to just sit in the marketplace and paint,
Oh,
sketch, and they'd come over and try to figure out what I was doing. And finally they forgot I was there. You know, it was fun. Um, yeah, no, I think that you've really had such an interesting life and you're doing so many wonderful things. How can people get in touch with you, Deborah?
the easiest thing is my website, which is my name, Deborah, Deborah, Charnes, CHARNES.com. And I am on a lot of social media, Instagram, YouTube, um, Facebook, LinkedIn, pretty much,
I
all.
noticed on your Facebook and on all of your social media, it's very, very easy to find you. You're so organized. You have everything. This is how you find me on this link and this link and this link. It was great.
Oh, good.
And
I,
we'll also we'll be sharing your information underneath and, so people will know and, we'll have social media posts and everything. So we'll get the word out about you and your book, which sounds amazing.
and I did want to just, mention too that in terms of some statistics, more than half of Americans say they are lonely,
Yeah.
and only 14% of American adults say they are very happy. And as you and I know, most of it is mindset. What I say all the time is some of the poorest countries in the world will have the happiest people.
Yes.
So I would love to know your thoughts about that in Haiti, but
Oh, actually, when I lived there, I found that the people who really had so little, they were so open and generous. And we had a little girl that would help out, and we gave her some oatmeal. And the next thing we knew, there were 6 little children eating out of her bowl with her. And always, the singing and there's just it's a really beautiful culture on so many levels, really beautiful people. So it was a great experience, really. So thank you so much, Deborah. I so appreciate you. And we'll get the word out very shortly about all your good work.
well, it's a joy to be with you. And I was especially impressed about your Haiti background.
Oh, okay. Well, we can talk about that. Imagine Peace is brought to you by 10 Million for World Peace. Join our daily 7-minute guided meditations for world peace and monthly healing circles at 10millionforworldpeace.org. Together we can create a peaceful, happy planet.